Hi, my name is Colin Trevorrow, and you're listening to the Jurassic Cast podcast. 2 years ago, we sort of come out of the blue and had a surprise guest on the show. He was just announced as the Jurassic Park 4 director, and at the end of the episode, he said he'll come back and join us after the film. So, we'd like to welcome him back. He kept his promise, Mr. Colin Trevorrow. Welcome back.
Thank you.
So, it's been 2 years. The film come out, very successful. How'd you feel?
I felt good. What can I tell you? It's it's interesting. You make a film like this, and I think the big question is whether the audience is going to accept the story you're telling and embrace it. And I always saw this as kind of a bridge. There would be familiar elements to Jurassic World, but woven into the familiar would be some pretty bold new ideas that could pave the way forward. And I remember when people first saw that image of Owen, riding his motorcycle with the raptors, it just looked bananas. It looked crazy, and to see that the audience embraced it and now it's part of the mythology. It was just deeply satisfying for me, and the way that I feel it. I'm not really out. I'm not in Los Angeles. I'm back in Vermont now, and I've kind of not. I haven't been out in the at the theaters as much and really getting to feel the way people are receiving the movie. But there have been moments where I have, and it's just been deeply satisfying. My wife has a bunch of friends in France, and because that's where she's from, and we were there, and this kid came up to me, and everyone in his class at school, all of his friends, knew that we were going to hang out and have lunch, because we always have these big 6-hour lunches in France, and they had all drawn different dinosaurs and characters from the film and scenes from the film. So he gave me this big stack of artwork from all of his friends who just wanted to share how much they loved it, and it was very moving for me. That's not an I didn't get children's drawings of Safety Not Guaranteed, and that was a first. And more than anything else, even standing in theaters and seeing hundreds of people at a time see the movie, that particular moment made me realize how far this had resonated. I'm in a foreign country, and that's what I'm getting. And so it's hard to articulate exactly how satisfying that was, but it made me feel very good.
I mean, it's awesome because, like my son, it's like seeing a mirror image of 20 years ago. My son's caked head to toe in Jurassic World shirts, and he's got the merchandise, and he's just drawing dinosaur pictures, and all he talks about is the dinosaurs now. And you've sort of resurrected that love of dinosaurs for kids.
It's fantastic, and I hope that that's what it does. I hope that it, like the first one, creates more scientists. I hope we do have that run of paleontologists that are making new discoveries, 20 years from now when they all grow up, because that, I think, is the legacy of Jurassic Park more than anything else. My kid, my own son, who I know he's biased, but I asked him, what did you think when he first saw the movie? And he said, it's the greatest movie ever made. And I was like, well, look, I think, I have some other movies to show you before you say that. But I think what's amazing is that for a kid, he's 6 years old. And I think actually for some 6-year-olds that may be true for them. And even if it isn't always true, and maybe for some 6-year-olds, it will always be true, because that's something that, you and I both experienced when we were young. We saw a movie that just completely captured our imaginations, and it was indelible, and it never went away. And the idea that there's another generation of kids for whom this will not go away is pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's amazing to think that it was one man's idea, Michael Crichton, just having that idea of reinventing the Westworld story and turning it into a dinosaur theme park. has led to, well, us five sitting here having this conversation right now, and everything else that has come with it. It must be really satisfying for you.
It is, and that kind of thing. I mean, there are a series of ideas. I think I said it. When I was up on the stage at the premiere, you guys were there. I mentioned, the legacy of Amblin.
I remember.
Yeah,
there were certain ideas that are so huge and so legendary that I think they do, they rank up there with the myths and the legends that we know. The Nazis trying to get their hands on the power of God was one of them. A teenager trying to make sure his parents fall in love so he can exist was another. An alien who needs a human boy to find his way home, and the last was, bringing dinosaurs back to life, and all of those stories are going to play just as well with our kids. And my kid is obsessed with Back to the Future right now. It's all he'll watch. As it did with us, and it's amazing how rarely big ideas like that happen over the history of movies. We're talking about a 30-year span, and there's a handful of movies that exist on that level and are able to still be with us.
Yeah, for sure, definitely.
I felt it myself. It's funny. I'll expound on that. We have the Lego game, right? They gave us the Lego game, and and my kid loves, because I'm in it. My kid loves there's Dad walking down the main street, which he finds hilarious. But I was playing it with him. We didn't get a chance to play it till just now because we've been gone, and that it kind of blows my mind. I'm sitting here watching all these characters that Derek and I just made up. I'm like, oh, okay, he'll be named Owen, and then she'll be Claire, and this is what she'll do, and now here it is, and these things have become part of an iconography that is so much bigger than us, and it's almost surreal.
Yeah, I mean, can it sort of relate to that in a way, because we realised that some of our writing off the Masrani website has made it into the Lego game. Like when the loading screens come up and it gives you facts from Mr. DNA, some of the facts that they write up are ones literally taken from the Masrani website. So we were like, oh, we didn't even know this. No one told us. So we're like,
I remember giving permission to do that.
Yeah. It's very strange.
Yeah, and they have the logo and everything. Yeah. Well, congrats on that, you guys. I mean, we can talk about that for a second. I mean, I found that to be pretty unique in the history of relations, however you want to call it. I mean, it really did. I mean, not only did you do a spectacular job with it, but I feel like you genuinely contributed to the greater canon and the mythology of these movies and what we're building, and that's going to exist beyond even just this movie. What we did here, and it's something you should be really proud of. I know you are.
Oh yeah, well, thank you very much.
But yeah, thank you, Colin, for that. I was going to ask a question. Obviously, Derek is your writing partner, so I'm just wondering, what's the writing dynamic like between you guys? I mean, does one of you sit on the couch whilst the other types, or how does it sort of work?
Well, I can talk about it in the context of what we're doing now, because we're writing the sequel now, and the way we did it was we took a road trip together. We don't sit in a room. We never have. It's always been, I live here in Vermont and he's in LA, and we have a language together and we know each other so well. And so we took this road trip together. We drove my car from Los Angeles to Vermont, and we'd stop and we'd eat and we'd visit friends along the way. And I found some little theaters playing the movie in towns, in Iowa and Nebraska, and they were running a 35 millimeter print, and it was awesome. But mostly we drove and we talked about the world that we could build and how to move it all forward. And we always start with, why is this movie? And what is this movie really about? And then expand from there. And by the time we get to the actual, writing of the screenplay, the typing of the screenplay, we really know what it is. And the difference between what we wrote in the first draft and what the movie is startlingly close. Even though we developed it a lot and changed certain elements, we do put a lot of thought into this, and we wanted to create something with this first movie that would allow, I did look at it as a trilogy from the very beginning, and we designed the whole thing that way. And honestly, it's the trilogy is articulated in Jurassic Park. It's all in there. I know I'm digressing, but I'm just going to go with it. So the first movie, as we were talking about what that was about, and I know I've talked about a million things, but I've never really said this, which is, Jurassic World is all based on Ian Malcolm's quote. It's, you stood on the shoulders of geniuses to accomplish something as fast as you could, and before you knew what you had, you patented, you packaged it, slapped it on a plastic lunchbox, and now you want to sell it. Like, that to me is Jurassic World. That's why I had all the product placement. That's what it was. And
good quoting, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I got another one. Let's see if I can do this one. Second one, Jurassic World 2, and this is, as we were driving, we tried to find, what is the foundation is, dinosaurs and man, separated by 65 million years of evolution, have been thrown back into the mix together. How can we know what to expect?
Oh man, that sounds exciting.
I'm close. I know I didn't get that. That's me paraphrasing, but
yeah.
it's the implications.
we won't ask what the third one is. We'll leave that one till later, so we don't want to have too many, surprises.
Yeah, but that's why it's exciting that the movie did well, because that leaves us a lot of room to run, and it was part of this design. It had a beginning and a middle and an end when we wrote the first movie, and now that the movie did well, we get to play that out.
Yeah, for sure.
I was just going to say, with obviously the sort of work you did in expanding the story beyond just the film with Masrani and that sort of thing, is that a trend that you hope will sort of continue, obviously with the other Jurassic World films to come, but also just films in general, to help them sort of reach a wider audience and come up with a more sort of rich storyline and flesh out the world a bit more?
Yeah, you mean specifically the ancillary, like the website and things like that?
Yeah, the sort of stuff that's sort of outside of the scope of the film itself, sort of thing. Yeah,
we weren't the first to do it. I think we might have been the first to have fans do it. But I think that kind of stuff, it's so beneficial for people who genuinely want more and more information and want to go deeper into something that the running time of the movie doesn't allow. It's a family film. It's a film for kids, and I didn't want it to be 3 hours long. And so I think that what that does do is give people who are really interested the ability to delve deeper and especially in this case understand what happened in the time between these two movies a little better. And there are things that you guys put in there that are canon now. One of them being, Hoskins being responsible for the Pteranodon cleanup in Canada. We're doing it. And that kind of stuff it's just fun. And I hopefully I think it will be able to continue. I'm not sure if we'll have actually I take it back. Like we'll have a lot of ground to cover between these two movies. And I think the best thing about the Jurassic franchise is that you have stuff like that. You have the canon, but then you also have a wealth of information available to kids about dinosaurs, and so you also have science, which is connected with the film. And so to be able to what we did with the main website was not only trying to make it feel like a real place, but we hired a guy who actually started as like one of our detractors. He started as one of the Pro Feathers guys, and I his Brian's guy. And I called him and asked him if he would please come in and make sure that we did have accurate paleontology on the website, and it was a place where kids could go and get real information, because that's important. It's part of the franchise. And so he did. We hired him, and he did a great job.
I saw an article, it could have been in Wired, I think, or a website like that, where they were saying that the JurassicWorld.com website, the brochure website, is an amazing template for real theme parks to base their websites off of. Because they said you go on real theme park websites and they're so hard to navigate, they're glitchy, they don't really work, they're not flashy enough. And they said the Jurassic World website was more real than it should have been. And then they were saying that it's the irony being that it's not a real place. you know.
Yeah, well, it's funny that happened with a couple things because I was, that whole website, that idea to make it seem like a real theme park and not really mention the movie much at all. I wasn't sure how that was going to go over, and Doug and everybody over there at Universal embraced the idea completely and did something that I thought was pretty notable in the history of movie websites. What they did was really special, and it happened several times that we would go look at the real thing and be somewhat disappointed, and so just make our own. Looking at real theme park websites, and then also looking at real theme park control rooms. I went to Orlando and I went into Disney and I went into Universal and I saw, how they were actually running the joint. And both Pat Crowley and I were like, well, let's just go ahead and do it our own way. Cause it was like the guys with like the 13-inch, 420 monitors, with their soda. Like, no, we can do better.
If anyone fell for the website, like someone stumbled across it by accident, like just looking up theme parks and was like, oh, what's this place?
Yeah, trying to book a holiday. Like, why is it going?
That's why I love that stuff so much. I wrote all of the negative comments on the hotel in the hotel comments section on the website.
Oh, yeah. You wrote that?
I wrote those personally. Like, they can pay for all these dinosaurs, but they don't have like towel warmers in the bathrooms. Like, does anyone here travel with teenagers? Like all that stuff. I had a blast doing it.
Oh, that's amazing.
I may have gone too deep on this one. I'm realizing in the future I may have to delegate my time a little bit better and not be up at like 2 a.m. writing website comments.
Well, just talking about expanded universe stuff, like what Ross brought up and saying that like they should be implied for more movies and that lot. I feel like that you're now touching the tip of the iceberg with Jurassic. Now you've got Star Wars. So you're going to really see how deep a universe of a movie can go with that film, because Jurassic sort of is only just coming out of the woodwork in a way.
Well, I obviously can't talk too much about Star Wars.
No, obviously.
I will say that, the idea of, the universe, that word gets thrown around a lot as far as movies are concerned and what people are building. And that one's an actual universe. It's actually a galaxy.
A whole other one, yeah.
Very far away. And so, I think the size and scope of that is, every kind of story. And I'm sure that's how it's going to be. Every kind of story we can think of can be told in the Star Wars universe because it is endless and boundless.
Probably have their own Jurassic World as well.
Yeah, I'm hoping to keep that one. I'd like to keep that one for ourselves. But I think that's what's exciting about, and why they're so different. There's such different kinds of movies, and everything about them is entirely different. And yet, I think with Jurassic World, what's exciting is that this is the kind of sci-fi I love the most. It's extraordinary things happening to ordinary people, and its goal, its key mission is to make sure that it feels like our world that we live in which this is happening.
Yeah.
And creatively, that's always very exciting because we get to look around at the state of the world and how we would actually react to things like this. This is why alien invasion movies are always so much fun. Is we get to see what would happen, what would we do, and that's where we get to go. In the future of this, and I'm very excited. Jurassic World 2. I call it that not because that's what it's going to be called, just because it's easy to call it that, but. Just to be fair. But it'll get to be a different kind of film, and I feel like the audience has given us permission to a certain extent to take this to the next level, and I don't necessarily mean in scale. I feel very strongly that it's not about more dinosaurs or bigger and better dinosaurs. It's about using this as a starting point for a much larger story about our relationship with these animals and with animals in general, and the dynamic created by bringing them back to life.
Yeah, I mean, you've spoken before. We don't want to go into it too much, but you've spoken before about how it might have the open source things like that, Microsoft versus Apple aspect. To the storyline. I was just wondering, like, have you ever read Michael Crichton's book Next?
No, somebody else mentioned that I should read that as well.
Yeah, I think it'd definitely be an interesting. It would be food for thought, like while penning this, because he definitely expanded on ideas like that, and it's nothing to do with Jurassic. It's got a talking parrot and a chimpanzee going on an adventure through the big city. It's nothing like Jurassic.
Change our plans because that's exactly what we were doing.
Yeah,
be right.
But it's definitely worth checking out, I'd say. Yeah, but I just want to say good luck with it, man. You've nailed Jurassic World completely. It's sent everything I ever wanted and more from a fourth film.
Oh, thank you. And it's interesting. I hope that I think that the balance that we have to strike. That movie Jurassic World was very much made with the fans in mind, and I'm not going to forget it. But I think that now we've seen a lot of dinosaurs chasing people around on an island movies, and I really think that you guys and also the general audience is going to be down to explore where else we can go. And Owen's going to be in it and Claire will be in it, and neither of them are going to be in the same place we left them at the end of this movie. And even though Claire is the one who evolves the most over the trilogy, it's her story that mirrors this changing world. Owen has shit to deal with. Like, the two of them open Pandora's box in Jurassic World, and each of them are responsible for different elements of it in different ways. And I think that the way that these characters are connected to the circumstances of what's happening, it's different than the previous films. It's not let's find a different. Let's manufacture a way to get them somewhere. They're embedded into it now in a way that, as storytellers, makes it much easier for us to keep them involved. It doesn't feel as contrived.
Well, that's an excellent answer.
I mean, I just want to ask a quick question about the whole raptor sequence, of them going into the jungle to find the Indominus, and obviously then they turn around. I mean, that for me, that whole sequence, and I've said it plenty of times on the episodes, especially to John Schwartzman, because he shot it, and that is just pure cinematic bliss for me. That is probably one of the best scenes I've seen in a film in ever. It's up there with the T-Rex breakout scene in the first film and that. And I mean, what was you thinking when you come up with that? I mean, was you just sitting there and be like, "Here's a good idea, we're going to use the raptors, and then they're going to turn on everyone."
There's a little, it was the turn on everyone that was where it really connected, because the idea to use the raptors in some kind of hunting capacity, that existed way before I showed up. That was way back in the sales draft.
Yeah.
For those who have ever dug into any of those.
Yeah.
and the way it was executed in various drafts was very different, and in ours, there was a draft that came before us that the whole second half of the movie was one long hunt, and I looked at that and felt this can be extraordinary, but let's do all of this in about 2 minutes, and then let's have something happen that really shifts everything, and the idea of animals, dealing with issues of loyalty and betrayal and being able to flip it like that was exciting to me. And it was interesting. I remember, when this thing first started to come out and people started to hear that idea, everyone thought, oh, the raptors are friendly now. Well, that sucks. And I remember telling Derek, I'm gonna take a bullet right now. I'm gonna take a hit, because if I tell them, no, they're actually not friendly.
No.
You guys
Sorry.
Still with me? Sorry.
Yeah, it's just an alarm going off in our flat.
No idea what that was.
Yeah. Anyway, just a paddock alarm, don't worry.
Yeah. No. So I remember, I would read the comments, and I knew how much people hated that idea, and it was hard for me for many months to not reassure people that I get it, and that this was all part of something that we had designed, and it carried all the way up to the very last weeks of the marketing of the film, when finally, Universal was saying, we got to show the raptors, being at least aggressive because people want it. And I felt like I really wanted to hold it off, and ultimately, those guys obviously did quite well. A lot of people saw the movie, so I'm not one to criticize them. It's just more, as a filmmaker, I would have loved for that to be a huge surprise. But just in general, I felt like that was a moment that could just be one of those all-time oh shit moments, and we love oh shit moments.
Well, my other half she definitely said oh shit in the cinema. I remember hearing her say that when they turned around. She's like, oh shit. And I was like, yeah, that's right.
That marketing thing is a double-edged sword, you know, because we kept up like a strict spoiler-free like stand the whole way through, and we had like a handful of people who were joining us. You know, we weren't sharing anything or anything like that, and we got loads of messages after the film come out when the people watched it, and they were like, "Oh, thank you so much for, you know, not spoiling anything. We kept up with you," and you know, it just gave such a bigger impact of the final film, you know. But you know, as you said, you know, the marketing by doing it the other way is also good as well. As you said, the box office proved otherwise.
Well, it does, and it, you know, that it really comes down to the actual experience of the movie. Can be one of two things. It can be, oh my God, I can't believe that happened, or it can be, oh, that's what that was, or you know, that now I know context for this thing I've already seen. And those are there's different emotions behind that, and movies are designed to be built around that first set of emotions. I did not expect that, and you know, I did a lot of experimenting in this movie with people's expectations and with trying to create the element of surprise by, you know, for example, not earning deaths was something I was really interested in. I feel like people are so zeroed in, tuned in to the idea of a character having their death earned over the course of the movie by being a bad person or by, you know, doing something, you know, violent against the dinosaurs. And I, you know, when they picked up that lady, I wanted it to be a shocking surprise. And I felt like the only way to create surprise is to make it very clear that no one is safe and anything can happen. And we're not necessarily playing by the rules of screenwriting in this particular world because it's really going down. And I don't know, I actually had a lot of fun with it, you know, for better or for worse.
I think that was one of the things that sort of like pleasantly surprised me was like the, you know, the end scene with the whole sort of I guess like sort of almost like refugee camp feel of all the people who had been injured and that sort of thing. It's like, you know, it was a very kind of realistic portrayal of something going wrong. It was a disaster and it was something terrible that happened in the film, and it sort of really highlighted that fact that it was uncontrollable.
But it didn't just cut to black and you assume everyone's okay.
Exactly. Yeah. There were sort of there was collateral damage, if you will, in the course of the sort of the breakout of all the dinosaurs.
Yeah, you know, that was something I did partially because I needed to support what was going on emotionally, you know, with this family. But beyond that, Jurassic Park is actually pretty small in its scope. It's a few people at a beta test for something that never opens. And what happens is, you know, rumored about it and becomes legend, but it's not, you know, it doesn't become national news. And this is a full-fledged disaster that everybody knows about, and that there's, you know, 1,000 cameras with footage of from every angle that we get to see, and you know, all that stuff is planted to really make it clear that there's a major impact around the world in how people look at this idea of resurrecting these animals.
I want to ask this question, but I don't know. You don't have to answer it, Colin. Essentially, did anyone else other than Claire, Owen, and the kids see, and obviously the ACU troops and everyone, did any of the other guests see the Indominus Rex?
Did anybody see the Indominus Rex?
Yeah, because I feel like that obviously the Pteranodon attack on Main Street was the only thing that you know caused them to get in trouble. The Indominus is still somewhat of a secret. Is that true?
Yeah, like in the context of the movie, yes. You know, we didn't. There are incidents that could have happened that we didn't see in the film. Where, you know, it's funny. Like we've been talking about a lot, you know, in the sequel, the idea of being able to say something happened only, you know, in this movie, yeah, the crowd, the actual people of the park are mostly reacting to the chain reaction that the Indominus creates. There was a moment in the script that I ended up cutting out. We didn't even shoot it, but there were people in a hotel across the lagoon who were all watching this dinosaur battle from across the lagoon.
Yeah, that's what some fans were speculating. Like, did they see that? So, yeah.
I had a line. We cut away to it, and you see, and I shot the footage of people watching it. It's actually in one of the trailers they used it. It's like this big group of people, and they all like duck really fast, and so I did have it being watched, and then I had a kid watching the battle, and he says, "Can we come back next year?" To his mom.
That's awesome.
But cutting away to it in the middle of, because that last battle is just one long shot.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Cutting away just would have, it would have taken us out of it.
Well, I'm happy that at the moment, as it stands, the Indominus is more of a secret, because that brings up more interesting questions than people knowing exactly what went on at Jurassic World. It creates more drama.
Yep, absolutely. But they're like, just like before. I thought, we had a lot of fun with, putting the little nods back in from Jurassic Park. But the one that I like the most is the idea that somehow Lowry, Jake Johnson's character, got this old T-shirt off of eBay that was, must have been like, we were like, oh yeah. So one of the Costa Rican employees grabbed all the shirts on his way out and has been selling them on eBay over time. And to me, that just suggests that there's a very, real world that suggests. And now in the age of the internet, look, I mean, the
Larry
level
was us.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, it's funny, like, side story, on the day that Lowry did that speech, and I just written that speech the day before because I was all caught up in the product placement of it all, and the doing all of that, the Samsung Innovation Center, all that stuff. I'd made it very clear, like, I'm fine to do it, because obviously, these are deals that are made, Mercedes, all that stuff. I'm fine to do it, but you have to let me. I'm going to make this speech. My character is going to make this speech to contextualize why this is all happening, and that speech, I had written it the day before, and I put it in, and Jake had shown up, and he wasn't entirely sure. He was showing up right at the end of the shoot, and he didn't know the tone of the movie. And you've got Chris Pratt, as Owen, and he storms in, and he's all pissed off. And so the first thing that Lowry saw was that scene when Owen comes into the control room and is telling her, it's a highly intelligent animal, all of that. And so he's trying to get his head around, like, what, look, here's Claire, look, she's dressed all in white, and you got this guy, like, what's going on in this movie? And Peter Serretta and a bunch of the guys from Slash Film and from Hit Fix, and all those guys had shown up that day to do a set tour, an on-set thing. And I brought him over, and I introduced Jake to these guys, and he was like, oh, okay, I get it. I'm them. Like, I'm the fan. Like, I'm somebody who cares about this and doesn't want this to suck and doesn't want this to bastardize this thing that I love and that I care about. And so all of those guys actually inform Jake Johnson's performance and his character and who he is in a way that they may not even know.
Wow. That's awesome.
Whose idea was it to drop the old Ian Malcolm book in there?
I think that might have been Josh Roth, actually. A good friend of my assistant prop master on this one, and he's since graduated to prop master. I had said, look, I just want to have some visual reference somewhere, and I may have mentioned a book, but he went out and got that printed up, and they called it, they made up a name, God Creates Dinosaurs, and it's like, what do you think of this? I'm like, great. Okay, so we'll put it here, and let's give it to Katie, and she can be reading it on the monorail, and we'll just very, very subtly bury this thing in here. It was just an assurance to people that this is happening in the same world.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that book's mentioned in number 3, so it links 2 and 3 into it as well.
Right.
There's what was nice was, obviously, I mean, all of us see it a handful of times, and it's just seeing people's reactions in the cinema when she's on the monorail, or it's in the control room, just seeing the people being like, oh, it's Jeff Goldblum, and that, it's just a really cool little feature.
Like you felt people recognize it. I wasn't sure if it was something that's going to be just for the deep fans. You don't know where everything's going to land. But.
No, I see quite a few people at multiple screenings pointing it out to their other halves.
I think like the deep fans really got a kick out of the Lost World theme tune when Blue makes her return to fight the Indominus.
I love that.
The Lost World theme tune comes in, and like out of nowhere, that every single fan was changing their underwear, you know.
Oh no, I certainly was.
Yeah, no, he said that was Giacchino's idea, and he actually had gotten a lot of fans writing to him, asking, you know, is there a way we can get this theme in as well? So he did it as a shout out to the fans. I remember when we were recording it. That was crazy. Recording that theme, recording that entire score was an absolute highlight, man. We were on this stage in LA at Sony Studios. That's you know, they recorded The Wizard of Oz. It's got all of the history, and you know, we did the theme. The John Williams theme was the first thing we did, and I'm standing on this stage. I got to go in there where I'm surrounded with a 130-person orchestra playing that music, and it was like going to church. It was absolutely beautiful. And we had on the second day, Giacchino comes up and he says, "Well, look, you know, I just want you to know that Paul McCartney's going to come here tomorrow." We're like, oh, is that so? Paul's just going to show up, huh? And I thought he was kidding. No, I'm serious. Paul's going to come. And like, why? Like, well, he's just really into symphonic, you know, stuff, and he wants to hear what we're doing. And so I call my dad, like, Dad, I'm flying you down here tomorrow. I'm not going to tell you why. You're getting on a plane at like 6 a.m. Just be cool. And so I put him on a plane. I had no idea. And he comes down, and he loved just being there to see the recording. And then all of a sudden, you know, his hero walks in. You know, that's my dad's a musician, so that's his Spielberg. And Paul shows up with a bunch of his kids. He's got a bunch of grandkids, and all these children show up, and we sit them down in the front, and they all get to they're just fascinated with it, and they're in playing with the instruments, and it was pretty incredible, not only to introduce Paul McCartney to my father, but to be able to see how interested he was in what we were doing, and how excited he was to hear all the stuff, and, you know, asking if we have T-shirts. It was just amazing. It was incredible.
See, when it was put online through Michael's Instagram account that Paul McCartney was there, I was sitting there thinking, oh, I hope he's doing the credits song. Like it just comes in and he sings like a Weird Al Yankovic like song about Jurassic World
with a banjo or something.
Yeah.
That would have been tonally right on point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible. Those are kind of the moments that feel surreal. You know, they just creep up on you.
Tim?
Yeah, just thinking. I mean, Colin, you obviously enjoy making movies, and obviously you do it really damn well. What's more challenging in your eyes? I mean, creating something original like Safety, or continuing a legacy? And I know that, you know, we'd all consider Jurassic World original as well, in many aspects.
Well, that's how I looked at it. I looked at it as an original movie that was set in a established world, and I think that's the best way to do it. You know, Safety Not Guaranteed and my next film, The Book of Henry, both originals, both very specific stories by storytellers with very clear voices. You know, Derek Connelly and Greg Hurwitz. And to me, as a director, you know, I'm always stepping into a world that someone else had a hand in creating to a certain extent. And with Jurassic, it really felt like, you know, we had a certain amount of freedom, but also Steven had a certain set of ideas that he wanted in the film. And so that, you know, this one a little bit more than anything else that I've done, or even that I'm doing, had a set of parameters, but you know, it's exciting enough. There's so much to do. There's so much invention that happens over the course of these movies. You know, I definitely never felt like I was in some kind of story prison. You know, that I could only do so much. And what's exciting is that as a result of this film's success, you know, we're really being given free rein to expand on what we started, and so we get to really invent from scratch, and that's not how it was the first time. You know, there were parameters, and so there being no parameters is extremely exciting. And you know, there are no parameters on the one I'm doing on after The Book of Henry either. It's raw, pure invention and creativity, and that's why I started doing it in the first place.
That's great.
It was such a good answer. Hey.
Yeah. So I mean, has anyone got anything else? I mean, Connor, I did want to ask, not Jurassic related. It was just like sort of what what was it like, being offered the Star Wars job off of the back of this? I mean, because that must obviously Jurassic Park would have been a dream come true, but then to follow it up with Star Wars,
Well, the difference really is it's a little bit of a generational difference in that I saw Jurassic Park when I was 16, and you process something in a certain way when you're 16, and it's different than the way you process something when you're 6 and 7 and 8 and 9, and so I just have a different relationship with Star Wars, and we all have different relationships with films, I think, based on when we experience them for the first time. And you guys, one of the reasons why I took such an interest in you guys is that I took such an interest in you is the idea that there was a generation for whom Jurassic Park was their Star Wars, was something that was introduced to me when I was on Safety Not Guaranteed, and my assistants, when asked, said, no, Jurassic Park is the movie. Like, that's what it was. He's 10 years younger than me. Yeah. And there's a certain ignorance there, I think, for people my age, that there could be anything but Star Wars that is the movie of their lives. And as you look at as time goes on, there's kids that'll say Harry Potter is that. There'll definitely kids now that'll say The Hunger Games is that. And it's just made me think a lot about making sure to respect the movies that other people care deeply about. And if somebody says, this was my movie, if somebody says that episode 1, 2, and 3 is their, those are their Star Wars movies, and there's a whole generation of kids where that is the case. And I think people who are older might find that hard to believe, but I think we should respect that. And, and I see it with my own son. We're watching Back to the Future right now, and I showed him 1, and then he had to watch that for a couple months, and then he got to watch 2 and 3 kind of back to back. And he watched 3, and he said, "Well, I think Back to the Future 3 is the best one." And I'm like, "Well, now wait a minute, hold on, let's talk about that. Why do you think? Let's talk about it, and we'll see. Like maybe his opinions will evolve, but I think that it's so important for us to recognize that every certain number of years there's another generation who cares about something as much as we care about the thing we care about. And I'm so lucky that I got to not only create Jurassic World, that I think has a generation of kids that are going to feel that way about it, and I know that what we're doing with Star Wars, with JJ and Ryan, and ultimately what I'm going to do, there will be a generation of kids where that'll be their mythology. And that's very exciting.
Have you seen a cut of JJ's Star Wars yet?
I have not. I have read the screenplays for 7 and 8. That is all I'm going to say.
Wasn't asking for spoilers, but.
Well, yeah, the answer's a bit cryptic, because if you really like the stories, then of course you're going to do number 9. But if you hated them, you might be doing number 9 to go like, I know how to fix this. So that's a good answer. It's a good answer. We don't know what's going to happen in 8 and 9. Was it 7 and 8? Yeah.
My silence continues.
Yeah. You should talking about Back to the Future just quickly. You should ask your son what he thinks about this. Like the first film being Marty's story, the second film being Biff's, and the third film being Doc Brown's.
Yep, I could see that.
Yeah, because they focus on each character.
They do. And, I think the thing that he and I were talking about that he just got a kick out of is that the whole trilogy happens over the course of like 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Which is just
a hell of an adventure.
Yeah, it's just amazing. Like this kid, he just wakes up one morning, and 2 weeks later, he's in the old West, having already been to the future and the past. I mean, it's an amazing. It's a good mind blower for a 6-year-old.
Yeah, and like the second film, there's like 4 or 5 different DeLoreans, all in 1955 at one time, but you never see them on the same screen at once. Right. Anyway, welcome to the Back to the Future podcast.
I was on another podcast with Chris Pratt, and we were all talking about one of my responsibilities as being part of the Kennedy Marshall Spielberg family right now is to act in defense of any further Back to the Future episodes. I feel that one, Back to the Future is a perfect film to me. I think I don't see how it can be improved upon or expanded upon. I think it's just extraordinary. So I'm in there. I'm in there in defense.
Yeah, no, well, I love all three. I think they're all fantastic.
They're kind of like the Indiana Jones films, like things like that. You don't see them as individual films. You count them as one.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'll be interested. I don't know much about that, but I'll be really interested to see, if and how that continues. Obviously, I mean, these are all the films. It's amazing how, in a very short period of time, from 1977 to 1987 or 89, if you want to count Last Crusade, which we should. The number of stories that we're told that continue to exist today as the best stories that have been told.
And you've just added a chapter to one of the youngest ones of that generation, in my opinion, which was Jurassic. Yeah. It was like the last of the original.
Yeah, it was kind of the end.
Anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Colin, did you visit Waterloo Station when you were over London?
Oh, I heard. I mean, I saw all of that stuff that they were doing, and they sent me pictures of it, and I'd seen it months before, and then I finally got to see videos of it, but I didn't get to go, and it looked awesome. Was it cool? Did you go?
Yeah. I mean, it was mad because obviously the promotion on films over here is not as big, like far out as they go in the States, and then all of a sudden, because we were saying, wasn't they? We're like, obviously we've seen Jurassic World posters in cinemas, and the few TV trailers, and all of a sudden, was it like 2 weeks before the film? It's like someone opened the gates, and just Jurassic World just flooded into England, and then we had the Waterloo Station. It was insane,
Well, they had the box, the InGen crate there for about 4 or 5 days with raptor sounds being pumped out of it, and then someone came in overnight and they had the 4 raptors all climbing all over the crate, and then they even had the Jurassic Traders building that they hide in at the end of the film.
Yeah, I saw
and the Indominus, that was all there, like the actual size, and they had like "Welcome to Isla Nublar" everywhere. It was very interesting.
The one idea that I had for that they didn't get to do, because I guess it just ended up being too complicated, is I wanted to have, when you walked up to that crate, I wanted there to be like a kind of a kick drum on the inside, that if people got too close, there would be like a thump on it, and they'd startle and have to back away. And we don't know if we have to have somebody in there live doing it, so we won't know when people are getting too close, and it just got too complicated. But I thought it would have been cool to actually scare people in the middle of it.
If you get too close, you hear Robert Muldoon's voice go, "Clever girl." Like if you stick your head close, you become the raptor.
The worst thing about it, though, is I spoke to someone at Universal after and said, I really like them posters when they took them down, and they were like, because I asked, could I have one? And they were like, no, we destroyed everything. I was like, you destroyed that whole display. You could have given that away to a museum or something.
It belongs in a museum.
Well, I felt that way about the set, man. I mean, that broke my heart.
Yeah.
The whole Main Street, the whole boardwalk. I mean, we built everything. And we're there on the last day, and it's like, Colin, do you want to take him, just walk around, and because this is all going to be gone in a couple days. And it was upsetting. I think they still, because we built that entire Raptor arena. As you see it in the movie, that there's no digital element of that. That's 100% real, and it was in New Orleans, and they said they were going to try and keep it there for a while, but I imagine everything's gone. They still have the gyrospheres. I think those are going to be at the parks.
Yeah.
Okay.
I suppose that reminds me of it's a bit of a tangent, but with Aliens, when they were filming the sort of hive sequence inside the atmosphere processor, and they went back to I think it was a power station I think it was somewhere in London, but when they went back to film Batman at the same location, all the hive webbing was all still stuck up on the walls and that sort of thing. So years later.
Cool. Yeah, I didn't keep much. I've got a couple dinosaur eggs. I've got one of those, those shock sticks that the ACU guys use. I have a couple of weapons. So
preparing for the eventual outbreak.
About it. But I assume you guys got some posters. You found a way to do it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure.
We got our fingers in many pies.
I wouldn't underestimate you.
All right. Has anyone else got anything they want to ask Colin before we wrap up?
No, I'm all good. Thanks again for coming on. Congratulations on the film. Good luck with Star Wars and Book of Henry and Intelligent Life, I think, if that's all going ahead.
Yeah, I'm hoping to be able to, fit in what I can fit in. We, it really is. I know I've said it before in other interviews, but I was very sincere in wanting to make sure that I have a body of work and that I am able to build my craft and tell different kinds of stories. And the Book of Henry is the movie I was going to do before they called for Jurassic. And I think you guys are going to love it, man. There's no dinosaurs, there's no time machines, there's none of that, but it has its own kind of magic to it. And to me, it's actually, I really believe that whatever the term they use, geeks or fanboys, whatever they want to call us, it's assumed that we only like those kinds of movies. But I think that we're all fans of cinema. We're fans of movies.
Yeah.
And, and so I'm going to make a movie that I think everyone who liked Jurassic Park would really love, and I think there'll be another audience for it too. But it's significantly smaller. It's you could argue it's not as small as Safety Not Guaranteed, but it's an independent film, and it's on a small scale, and it's Naomi Watts is the star of it, and I think it's going to be great. But hopefully people will go along with me in whatever direction I go, and then we'll go back and do Star Wars.
Well, yeah, good luck with all of it, man. It's incredible.
Yeah, and if you're filming Star Wars in London, we'll finally grab them beers.
Oh yeah, no, I'll be there for quite some time. We're preparing a big shift, my family. So it's exciting. For me, that was part of the draw of it. People make decisions for a lot of reasons, and for me, one of them, the obvious ones aside, is my wife is French, and my kids spend a lot of time there, and to be able to be in the UK and be close to her family, there's just it presents a solution for me that was very attractive. So I'm very excited to be spending time in the UK.
Yeah,
that's why, Tim, you should move over here, man. You shouldn't be in Australia.
Come up. Stuck in the southern hemisphere.
UK, man. That's where it's at.
That's where it's at in all this rainy glory.
Yeah.
It's fun. All right, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Colin.
Thank you so much, man. That was good luck with everything in the future, and thank you again for all the amazing work you've been doing, and everything.
Not in the future, in a galaxy far, far away.
Right.
A long time ago.
What a pro.
I've gotten good. Well, it's weird. They're going to do this thing because they're not doing it in the UK, but in the US, they're re-releasing the movie on Labor Day weekend in IMAX and in a bunch of theaters.
Yeah,
we've got it in the UK. We've got it in the UK for that week. Yeah, it's on at the cinema I work at.
Well, they did the thing where they filmed me introducing the movie. Wow. And I did it. I didn't even realize we go down and I just welcome people and tell them thanks for coming, and I didn't. They're like, well, we're shooting it in 4K because you're going to be on the IMAX screen. And it's just not something that I had even processed. Like that, nobody wants to see my head that big. Like my head was not designed for an IMAX screen at all. And here we are. All right, guys.
But that's the thing, because people were saying, it's being re-released in IMAX over there, but my local IMAX is still playing it.
Wow.
2 months later, But hopefully the re-release in America, helps you sink Titanic at the US box office.
I don't know if we will. I'm not even sure if I want to. Can I say that? I'm not sure if I want to. I like it the way it is. I think it's just fine.
Yeah.
I think we make plenty of money. I'm not telling people don't go. I think I'm happy to, and we were able, regardless of even what happens later this year, we get to be for the moment where we get to be, the highest grossing summer film of all time, and summer films are a certain kind of movie, and that makes me very proud. And we just passed Mary Poppins adjusted for inflation. So, I mean, that's where everything goes. It's the
Van Dyke's coming after you now.
Yeah, she needs a spoonful of sugar to make that mix. Right, that's it.
Oh no,
we're gonna end with that.
Yeah.
I'm burnt out. My crap joke books. I'm on the last page. Right.
Thanks, Colin.
Thanks a lot. Be well. I'm good. Here we are. What is it? 2 years, 3 years later? When was the last time we did this?
I think it's like 2 years and a couple of days.
2 years.
Yeah, 2 years anniversary's coming up like very soon.
Feels like longer. Maybe not for you. But.
Yeah.
Yes. For you, it would seem like an eternity. For us, it was like just waiting around, looking at the trailers. We're playing the trailer over and over again. Come on, let's do.
Picture there was there was a photo of me at Sundance that somebody had put online in some article, and it managed to get up next to a photo that was taken of me when we were in Germany on our press tour, and I just aged like a president. Like I look. That's 3 years ago.
Well, that's like I don't want to be cruel to the man, but like Peter Jackson, every time I see him in a different interview, he looks so different to the interview, like even if it was like a week before. Like the man changes so much.
Yeah, it's the Gandalf beard. It's the gray beard that's happening.
Yeah. I guess it's like just work patterns, isn't it? When you're like, when you've got a lot of work to do, and then
it is. Look, I am a man designed for 8 hours of sleep a night. That's just how I'm built. And when you make a film, pretty awesome the entire way through, you're getting up at 4 a.m. and going to sleep at 1, the next night, and that takes its toll.
Mm. Yeah,
it's a bit like fatherhood.
Well, yeah, add fatherhood into it because I've got 2 of them. I've had a couple of my team have been on the podcast already. I heard John Schwartzman's talking about it.
Yeah. And we had Kevin Stitt on the other day. He was one of my favorites. Like, what a guy.
Ed Verreau as well.
Oh, that's right.